Justin Yachts, and this is episode 59. And I'm going to talk about life. I'm going to talk about books I read. I'm going to talk about the film Soul. I'm going to talk about WandaVision episode 4, talk a little bit of politics, and we'll end with a quote. So stay tuned. So I wanted to talk a little bit about life and some of the perceptions a lot of people have. I feel a lot of people are always chasing sunsets. And what I mean by that is they're always chasing after their dreams instead of already living them. And what I've found with a lot of research and work, especially if you read Joe Dispenza's books, you'll find that the best way to approach your goals is to live them as if you've already done them. Like, think about how you would feel accomplishing it. What would you do? How would you behave? Would you be different? What would you do differently today if you had met all of your goals and be that person today? Instead of waiting to be the person we hope to be, why don't you be the person you want to be now? And that seems to be something that very few people talk about. And I think that's why Joe Dispenza's work really produces a lot of results, is it's talking at a place that most people would never think to go to. They're always like, oh, I'll be happy when I've got this. I'll be happy when I have this. And he's saying, no. Be happy now. Feel what it would feel like to have what you want and do it now, as opposed to waiting. See, how many people waste their life waiting to accomplish something, and he's saying, just live it now. That's why his meditation is so powerful, because he's walking you through something you haven't accomplished yet, but in some ways you already have accomplished it. Because the mind doesn't know the difference between something that's really happened and something you thought about has happened. So think about it and you'll feel what had happened. But the real point of this is to live your life today as if you've accomplished what you want. Be that person that you hope to be in 2 years, 3 years. Be that person now. Don't wait. Don't let, the idea of it cloud you. Just be it now. Pretend. You're talking to an actor here, but very few actors do this. Just pretend, but feel it. Really feel what it would be like to accomplish the goals that you've set out to accomplish. Set those out. Be who you wish to be now, not tomorrow. So with that, I want to take you to the other thing I did this week, which is books I read. And I'm on a roll here. I've read a lot of books. I finished Mayor Kane, My Life in Politics and Wrestling by Glenn Jacobs. It's not a bad book, 300 pages. I felt, though a lot of it was retelling of wrestling stories that I've already heard, so I would have liked to have heard more. He gets into politics, but it's more on a broader scale. He doesn't really go into detail. If I had him here, I would ask him a lot of detailed questions. I don't feel like he goes into detail about anything. It just seems like one of these books that famous people put out, and it's like, here, buy my book and read my stuff, and it's like, I want detail. You've lived an amazing career, an amazing life. You've done all these things. Now go into detail about it. Don't just give me a 300-page book so that people can say they read a book. at a fourth grade level. Give me detail. So I liked it, but I wanted more. The other book I read was Poke the Box by Seth Godin. Seth Godin. He's an entrepreneur and real idea guy. Anyway, he talks about, how just, change your thinking. It's really a book about like changing your thinking and what you could do more of, and not waiting, how to stop procrastinating, basically. How to make the most out of things, how to get a job and do that job well, and speak up and say, I have these ideas, and do it. Most people get a job and then they don't say anything. They just continue doing the same thing. So that's what that book was about. I started reading a little bit. I haven't finished this yet. 10 Lessons for a Post-Pandemic World by Fareed Zakaria. I talked about it a little bit last week, but I'm still on that. And then I finished What They Don't Teach You at Harvard Business School by Mark H. McCormick. And that was a really interesting book. It's, written about, this guy who's, kind of done it all in business. And he, gives you a lot of interesting things. Now, the thing is, it's a little outdated because I believe it was written in like the 90s and the 80s. I'm not sure which one. I guess I could look at the book now, but I don't feel like doing that right now. I'm in a flow right now. But it's a good book. It's a good business book. It's a good life experience book. Talks a lot about, negotiating, what you can do, how to make the most of your time. One of the things I liked was, always, he said, if you have a messy desk, it's going to, cause you to think messy. And I agree with that. I try to clean my room at least once every week, especially my bathroom. But I try to keep my room clean because I know that my thoughts need to be clear. So those are the books I read. And when I come back, I'm going to talk about the film Soul. So I just finished watching Soul the other day, and I gotta say, this was amazing. This film had me bawling. This film had me stop dead in my tracks of thought and just really follow along with the ride. I think this is one of the best movies since it came out in 2020. It's probably the best movie of 2020. So thought-provoking. Pixar is not afraid to tackle scary questions like what happens when you die, and where does happiness come from? These things that most filmmakers would not dare approach, and Pixar just goes at it. Now, this film was directed by Peter Docter, and he did the film Up. He did Inside Out, Monsters, Inc. I love Inside Out. That was another tall order of a film, and that passed with flying colors, and this is another one. The cast is Jamie Foxx, Tina Fey, Graham Norton, Rachel House, Alice Braga. I'm going to butcher some of these names, I apologize. Richie Iota, Felicia Rashad, Donnell Rawlings, Questlove, Angela Bassett. All-star cast, really good voice work. The music is done by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, and John Baptiste adds a lot to it. He's also part of the music, and he is the head band guy in Stephen Colbert's show on The Late Show. This movie is so deep. I mean, they show New York, and it's one of the most faithful feelings of New York. It made me feel like I was in New York. There's crowded streets narrow, that narrow feeling, everything being smashed together. And I was amazed at how well they recreated New York and the buildings. When you go down these old jazz hall buildings, you go down the stairs and it's like, and then you go down another stairs and everything's underground, and it felt like New York. Now Jamie Foxx plays a character who is, he's a jazz musician and he's playing in a band, and he's not really lived life to his fullest. And he, dies. And he's doing everything he can to get back because he's got a gig and he feels like this is his moment. And he, so he's trying to get it out of it, cheat death in some ways. And he's, kind of, taking somebody's past and be like, oh, I'm this person. And he's got to help this one little person, this little feeling who no one's ever been able to help. And they have this little montage of her working with all these famous figures like Abraham Lincoln, who's like, I can't stand this person. I can't do it. And George Washington. So it's got a lot of good comedy in there. And then he ends up coming back to, and he's got to help this, little soul kind of find his place. And it's so heartwarming. Such a beautiful film. It's so beautifully filmed. And by the end, I'm just crying. Because you just feel something on a human level. Pixar hits you where you feel. And very few films can do that. And they do it with animation, and they do it in such a beautiful way of just like comedy and drama, and it just... I'm crying now just thinking about it. It hits you there about life and what is life about and how to make the most out of life. And like I said, how to live your life today. So it kind of ties back into what I just said at the very beginning. I can't recommend this movie enough. I don't even want to spoil it because it's so special. The music, there's a lot of music in there. There's a lot of playing the piano, and you could tell that musicians, people who love music, made this. You can see them hitting the notes, and you can see them producing the sound out of there. I mean, there's a lot of jazz elements to it, and explaining jazz, and the improvisation of jazz. If you like jazz, this is a film for you. If you like music, this is a film for you. If you like just seeing a great film, this is the movie for you. I mean, this should be nominated for the Academy Awards. If they don't nominate it in the Best Picture and seriously consider it for the win, I don't know what they're talking about, because this has everything you need in a film, and they tell it in such a concise manner. Graham Norton's character is awesome in it. Tina Fey brings such life to something that you just wouldn't expect. Angela Bassett is always great. And Jamie Foxx, he's always able to play that everyman who's just struggling to just get by, but has a dream. And you can see, he invokes a little bit of his character from Collateral. I can't say enough about it. Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, they found that awesome sound where it's this otherworldly sound, but it's passive and it's beautiful and it's just there. And the comedy is just right on, and it just, I don't know, I was blown away. I mean, I knew it was going to be good, but I didn't know it was going to be that good. I should have known it would be that good, because it's done by the guy who did Inside Out. And that's another film that hits you with the feels and makes you think about who you are inside. And this one makes you feel like, well, what is your soul? What is your soul? And This asks the question, where do souls come from? Where does happiness come from? Where does purpose come from? Tough questions to ask, and they do it. And it's amazing that they're able to do that. I'm just floored by what I saw with this film. Just floored. Just sublime, truly unique, different, groundbreaking, not been seen before. Nobody has tackled this subject like this, especially in a kid's movie, and they're not afraid to tackle it. So all I can say is, go see this film. This is the best film probably of 2020. They're not lying when they say that to you. It's true. So go see Soul. And when we come back, I'm going to talk about WandaVision, and that's going to be just all spoilers, so you're warned. WandaVision, Episode 4. I love this show. I love this episode. This episode's different. It kind of takes you out of the WandaVision world, and we kind of see it from the from other characters' perspectives, which I thought they could have gone another episode before going down this route, but this was a good way to go, because as you see in the very beginning of at the end of episode 3, Geraldine is pushed out, and we kind of find out how Geraldine ends up and who Geraldine is. So this is a great episode. I recommend it. Watch it. Now I'm going to get into spoilers, so you are being warned. Okay. So the episode starts out with right after Endgame, with Geraldine coming back, which we find out Geraldine is really Lieutenant Trouble from Captain Marvel. And she's come back, and this whole hospital's like, they're all like, popping back. And they're overwhelmed, and she finds out that her mother's dead. And she's like, that can't be. And she's like, I was just there, and they said the cancer came back. She died, 2 years after you disappeared. So it's been 5 years. Once again, it shows how well the MCU is plotted out. You couldn't do this if you didn't know exactly where you were going. And the MCU is so plotted out well. They know exactly where they're going. They probably have the next 10 years mapped out already. That shows how far back and how much research goes into this and how much long-term planning goes into this. Great stuff. So then we find out that Rambo, I forget the actual name, Lieutenant Trouble's mother, Captain Marvel's friend there, built Sword. So Sword was built from there, and she's kind of said, you're only going to go to terrestrial missions. She can't go to the extraterrestrial, which she was hoping for. So they end up in New Jersey, and we see we see the FBI agent Randall from Ant-Man and the Wasp, and he's and she's sucked in, and we're seeing that we're seeing that the whole town is kind of quarantined off. And Kat Dennings' character comes back, Darcy, comes back, and, she brings up a lot of humor. And she discovers there's a signal, and they get an old TV, and she sees that WandaVision is like, all these old sitcoms. And they're kind of trying, and we find out that, the whole, them talking to her was basically, them watching. And her plan in episode 2, of calling them calling through the radio was Darcy's plan. That didn't work. Then we go back to, then we're at episode 3 with the Brady Bunch thing and everything. And we see Geraldine kind of questions it and mentions Ultron, and they notice that's the first signal of something that's happened in the real world. So they mention Ultron, and then they cut to credits. And Darcy's kind of like wondering like what's going on. And then we see in real time what's happened. Scarlet Witch throws her out. And so more and more we're finding out that, Scarlet Witch is the one controlling everything. And she looks back at Vision, and she sees the Vision when his head was ripped out by Thanos. So either somebody is controlling Wanda, or Wanda is the bad guy, which could be the twist all along. And when Geraldine is out of there, we come back to that, and she says it was Wanda. And then they cut to Jimi Hendrix' Voodoo Child, and that's how the episode ends. It's great stuff. So good. They're so touching on things that you just couldn't touch on. They're touching on different genres, and it's a delight to watch. Apparently, March 5th is the last episode of WandaVision, and then March 19th we get Falcon, Winter Soldier, and Falcon. So we don't have to wait too long for the next episode. I am just floored with WandaVision. I love it. I recommend you watch it. Go see it. This is such good stuff. I cannot wait to see what they do next. And when we come back, I'm going to talk about politics, and I'm going to end with a quote. So let's talk politics. Biden has signed 42 executive actions since taking office. Let's look at them all. On healthcare, the executive order on strengthening Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act. I think that's really good. That's important. This reopens enrollment on healthcare.gov from February 15th through May 15th. And it directs federal agencies to re-examine policies that may reduce or undermine the Affordable Care Act. The next thing he signed was Memorandum on Protecting Women's Health at Home and Abroad. This is very important. The memorandum also directs the U.S. Health and Human Services Department to immediately move to consider rescinding the Trump administration rule blocking healthcare providers and the federally funded Title X family planning program from referring patients for abortions. This is good. This is also a ban. It rescinds the Mexico City policy, a ban on U.S. government funding for foreign nonprofits that perform or promote abortions. So that's good stuff all around. Environment. Executive order on tackling the climate crisis at home and abroad. This instructs Directors of National Intelligence Avril Haines to prepare a national intelligence estimate on the security implications of the climate crisis. That's good. This establishes the National Climate Task Force, assembling leaders from across 21 federal agencies and departments. This commits to environmental justice and new clean infrastructure projects, and kicks off development of emissions reduction target. Establishes the Special Presidential Envoy for Climate on the National Security Council. I'm there. I like it. Another one is an executive order on establishing President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology. This reestablishes the President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology. That's good. A memorandum on restoring trust in government through scientific integrity and evidence-based policymaking. This charges the Director of the Office of Science and Technology Policy with the responsibility for ensuring scientific integrity across federal agencies. The Paris Climate Agreement. This should never have been, we never should have left this. This rejoins the Paris Climate Accords. Executive order on protecting public health and environment and restoring science to tackle the climate crisis. This cancels the Keystone XL pipeline and directs agencies to review and reverse more than 100 Trump actions on the environment. I'm there. Equity. Executive order on advancing racial equity and support for underserved communities through the federal government. This rescinds Trump's administration's 1776 commission and directs agencies to review their actions to ensure racial equity. Another one is executive order on preventing and combating discrimination on the basis of gender identity or sexual orientation. Don't really have to go too far into that. That's pretty self-explanatory. A memorandum on condemning and combating racism, xenophobia, and intolerance against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders in the United States. That's something that I don't think a lot of people realize, but is very important. Another one, self-explanatory. Executive order on reforming our incarceration system to eliminate the use of privately operated criminal detention facilities. This directs the Attorney General not to renew federal contracts with private prisons. So it's a step in the right direction. Some argue it doesn't go far enough, but I think it's a good thing. A memorandum on redressing our nation's and federal government's history of discriminatory housing practices and policies. This is long overdue. I think that's self-explanatory. Memorandum on tribal consultation and strengthening nation-to-nation relationships. Let's talk a little bit about that. That recommits the federal agencies to engage in regular, robust, and meaningful consultation with tribal governments. I think that's important. Executive order on enabling all qualified Americans to serve their country in uniform. So this gets rid of the transgender American ban, which was foolish stuff that Trump did. Let's look at economy. Executive order on ensuring the future is made in all of America by all of America workers. So it helps make it so that we're making more things in America. Executive order on protecting the federal workforce. This restores collective bargaining power and worker protections for federal workers and lays the foundation for a $15 minimum wage. Executive order on economic relief related to the COVID-19 pandemic. This calls the assistance to those who are struggling to buy food, missed out on stimulus checks, or are unemployed. That's good. Pausing federal student loan payments. That's important. This keeps student loans from having to be paid back until at least September 30th. Extend eviction and foreclosure moratoriums. This extends the existing nationwide moratorium on evictions and foreclosures until at least March 31st. Hopefully it goes further than that. COVID-19 proclamations on the suspension of entry as immigrants and non-immigrants of certain additional persons who pose a risk of transmitting coronavirus disease. Good, important. Memorandum to extend federal support to governors' use of the National Guard to respond to COVID-19 and to increase reimbursement and other assistance provided to states. Another good thing. Executive order on a sustainable public health supply chain. This accelerates manufacturing delivery of supplies for vaccination, testing, and personal protective equipment. Important. We got a lot of these. Executive order on establishing the COVID-19 pandemic testing board and ensuring a sustainable public health workforce for COVID-19 and other biological threats. This just establishes the pandemic testing board to expand to U.S. coronavirus testing capacity. Important. Executive order on improving and expanding access to care and treatments for COVID-19. That's self-explanatory. Executive order on ensuring a data-driven response to COVID-19 and future high-consequence public health threats. create more vaccination sites, executive order on supporting the reopening and continuing operation of schools and early childhood education providers, helps with opening schools, executive order on protecting workers' health and safety. This calls on the Occupational Safety and Health Administration to release clear guidance on COVID-19 to decide whether to establish emergency, temporary standards, and direct OSHA to enforce worker health and safety requirements. Well, we get a lot of these. Executive order on promoting COVID-19 safety in domestic and international travel. That's important. Executive order on ensuring an equitable pandemic response and recovery. Good. National Security Directive on United States global leadership to strengthen the international COVID-19 response and to advance global health security and biological preparedness. Executive order on protecting the federal workforce and requiring mask wearing. Fundamental. So necessary. I am still seeing people not wearing masks, and it drives me insane. I was at the gym, and they're putting it like under their nose. Some people take it off and walk around, and I'm like, what is wrong with you? So this is important. Letter to His Excellency Antonio Guterres. Executive order on organizing and mobilizing the United States government to provide a unified and effective response to combat COVID-19 and provide United States leadership on global health and security. Census, executive order ensuring a lawful and accurate enumeration and appropriate pursuant to the decennial census. Immigration, preserving and fortifying deferred action for childhood arrivals. Proclamation on ending discriminatory bans on entry to the United States, executive order on the revision of civil immigration enforcement policies and priorities, proclamation on the termination of emergency with respect to the southern border of the United States and redirection of funds diverted to border wall construction, stopping the border wall, which never needed to happen, reinstated deferred enforced departure for Liberians. This extends deferrals of deportation and work authorizations for Liberians with a haven in the United States until June 30th, 2020. Ethics, executive order on ethics commitments by executive branch personnel, regulation, modernizing regulatory review. So that's 42 executive orders, and I think they're all necessary and they're very important, and some people are upset because he feels like he's getting too much done. I think that's bull. He should be able, this is what we want, this is why we elect presidents, to get stuff done. So I'm for it. So that's what I'm saying there. And it looks like Trump impeachment trial will start on February 9th. So that'll be interesting to see. We saw the 45 senators voted to say that this was unconstitutional. It's a shame that these senators just continue to vote on party lines, including Rand Paul, who says, I don't vote on party lines. He's voted every time on long party lines, so don't give me that. So that's some of the stuff that's going on in politics. Now let's talk about a quote. We generate fear while we sit. We overcome them by action. Dr. Henry Link. Once again, we generate fears while we sit. We overcome them by action. So what that says is you can just sit around and you'll just worry, oh, what is this? What's going to happen here? And how do you overcome that? By doing something about it. If you just think about it, nothing's going to get done. But if you actually do something, you're taking action and you get rid of the worry. Because worry can't happen while you're doing the action. So I think that's a good quote to end on. As always, I want to thank you for listening. You can find me at my handle at Justin Yance. And I will see you next time on the DMF.